Yo, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing today? We're getting close now. It is Friday, July 17th, 10:15 a.m. Wherever you are in the world, I say welcome. Guys, if you're a JSB insider, if you either joined as a VIP on YouTube or on Patreon and you're not in the Discord, send me a DM. I just looked at some of our analytics. There's more of you guys on the Patreon who aren't in the Discord than there are on YouTube. But if that just happens to be the case and you signed up as a VIP and you support the cause and you get all my picks and all that good stuff, but you're not in our community, you need to message me. We need to get you in there. August 1st will be our 1 year anniversary. We're approaching 550 VIPs. We're a growing community. It's not just boxing, it's not just MMA. That is my wheelhouse, but our Discord is a community of professional sports betting with all pro sports. We know the World Cup is the finals here next on Monday. You got Spain and Argentina, so a lot of the guys in the Discord have been winning a boatload of cash betting on the World Cup. There's NRL, AFL, American football starting, etc. My point: if you're already a VIP and you're not in the Discord for whatever reason, message me and I'll send you the VIP link. Guys, to join, click the link that's pinned on the screen. It's a couple bucks a month. I'm gonna leave that off, pinned in the comments section. Guys, I woke up this morning with they're offering us so many more fights, so I'm gonna go over that. You guys should have. I did give you guys another ticket this morning. I'm going full unit on it. It's You guys know me. I'm never gonna sit here and say I'm comfortable with any of my picks. But there's a money line 4-leg that pays plus 113. There's 3 boxing fights and 1 UFC fight. And I've sent that to a few of my big guys. I'm putting heavy money on it. I like it. Let's continue with our winning ways. If you're playing along, we're 3 weeks in a row of hitting literally everything that they're giving us. We hit our dog of the week already in Japan on a live stream. I'll go over all of your questions if you have any specifics about the fights this weekend. The big one is Pacheco versus Aleem, that fight card. If you haven't seen my breakdown and prediction on the Stats Don't Lie playlist, watch that. And then the undercard, some really good prospects as well. A lot of names you guys should recognize. The ProBox card is stacked. So there's a lot of action. There's a UFC card that we'll get into. I'll stay on at least an hour, so taking your questions. So I'm going to say what's up to the chat. Got to be more specific, champ. What's up, Shadow? We're good. So Auntie Ruiz is the favorite in the Philippines. Her odds are actually crashing in Australia. I'll show you. What's up, boss? This is crazy because I got Auntie at plus 115. She's now up to plus 118, meaning that money is coming in on Ginny. Yeah, look. So not here. So boss, money is actually coming in on a little bit, not a lot, on Ginny. Because I got Auntie Ruiz 3 days ago at plus 115. She's now at plus 118. So if she's the favorite in the Philippines, that's crazy. How could there be that big of a differential from Australia books to the Philippine books? So I'm not sure. What's up, Pablo? Pablo Escobar. Escobar season has returned. What's up, Baz? John, do you think Malloy goes the distance? Now, because I'll pull the odds up. It's an eight rounder, right? No, it's a 10 rounder. IBF European. All right. So money is actually coming in on Noakes. Watching tape, breaking this fight down, I don't see it. I don't know if it's because maybe bettors are confused and they think that's Sam Noakes. That's the only thing I can think of. Because when you watch these guys tape, when you understand Malloy's amateur background coming from Ireland versus Noakes not really having one, Noakes being a 31-year-old prospect, Malloy being a 5'11" southpaw, he could punch a bit. I got Malloy 3 days ago at $1.54. He's now up to $1.69. meaning that money is coming in on Noakes, which that doesn't bother me. I'm actually just a bit salty that I didn't wait a bit to get him at that price because that price is crazy. So I have Malloy on a couple different parlays. I have him on a money line double. When I went to bed last night, I wasn't getting method of victory options, so I'm looking at it with fresh eyes as you ask me this, boss. So let me look at the odds. You know, it's always tricky. It just depends on your bankroll, it depends on your wallet, it depends on what you're trying to do here, right? If we go safety first, then more risky, obviously safety first will always be money line. In my opinion, I think Malloy is probably a level above Noakes in terms of how he operates in the ring, his punching, you know, just how he boxes as an overall boxer. So safety first would be Malloy on the money line. Will the fight go the distance? Yes. So will the fight go the distance? The odds are telling you that's even a better play than picking a winner. So look, if you like Noakes, and this is a good question from Baz, so shout out to Baz. If you're torn on this and you don't have action on Noakes or Malloy yet, I think this fight goes the distance. Neither guy is a big puncher. It's a British fight. It is a 10-rounder. 42% for the fight to go the distance. Great parlay piece. Great. And you could, 42% return. I'm not playing it. I wouldn't be mad if you did. I really, really like Malloy on the money line, though. So, as we're going through each fight today, this fight right here, I like, right there, 169. So that's my play. I think it goes the distance. That's if I had a bet. What's up, Mags? What's up? In the US, she's minus 125. It's crazy how I was under the impression that the global betting odds is a singular body. Am I wrong with this? When I lived in Las Vegas, I was told that the betting odds on everything, when they're released, it's based off of the money coming in and the money coming out on said event. So you would think there would be some sort of consistency globally, and it usually is. So maybe in the Philippines, Boss Marv said that Auntie Ruiz is the favorite in the Philippines. Maybe it's because my book here in Sydney, the one that I choose to use, if you look here, this is a three-way, it forces us to do a three-way bet, meaning that if there is a draw in any of these fights and I've taken a money line, I lose my bet. But because of that, because you're betting for the draw not to happen, that does affect the money line odds, both sides of the coin. Because on some books, the draw just voids your bet. So I think that has something to do with overall odds depending on where you are in the world with your book. That is my sort of take. Thomas Shelby, I'm worried about that Eubank will outpunch Papo, but Papo punches less, but with more accuracy. Yeah, so what I'm leaning on with that fight, I have David Papo on points. I feel that he's the better boxer. I think in a perfect world with my bet, I feel Papo will use his range. He has a 4-inch height advantage, long jab, better skilled boxer. We saw the game plan if you rewatch the tape, how he boxed Pero. He has the ability to fight at a couple different ranges. We saw him staying on the outside, but when he was having success, he'd come on the inside. And Pero was having a lot of trouble with that sort of awkward timing and the length and the size of Papo. Eubank is a little bit smaller than Pero. At least he's listed as almost a full inch shorter than Pero. Now, Eubank is a guy who prides himself on athleticism, and other than that, he crashes in when he enters the pocket. There aren't a lot of clean setups. There isn't a lot of class in terms of hiding behind feints or hiding behind jabs and catching your opponent off and then sliding into range. He kind of just uses his explosivity and his speed to jump into range. And I'm predicting and I'm betting, from what I see, I'm leaning on the fact that Papo could catch him and just use that jab. I think that Papo can make this look easy. That's what I'm betting on. I think Pacheco can make this look easy. Chop Chop ain't stopping Almeida. Oh, Almeida, Chop, dude, this is a very tough fight. Who said he's stopping him? Almeida, Mexican Olympian and title challenger. Some books got distance plus money. No, this is great matchmaking. Same thing with the Anthony Cuba fight. Anthony Cuba's in a really tough fight. Yeah, Michelle Cabrera. When you look at the losses, Cabrera's only loss. Like this is it. Oh, this is the Cuba fight. You want me to look at Chop Chop? Aaron Lopez Alameda. If I so wow, they're giving us props on all these fights now. Like I said, boys, when I went to bed last night, I wasn't seeing any of these props. So I kind of what I'm gonna do is I thought I was done. I thought I thought I was gonna be done for the week in terms of giving out tickets because I there's at least six tickets that are live. There's a UFC dog, there's a boxing dog, there's a long parlay, there's our quarterly parlay, there's a triple. I've given you like 6 tickets. And that was without seeing all these method of victories. Now, method of victories are always going to be tricky. The point of playing the method of victory, though, as you can see, is chop chop at $1.09 on the money line. It's almost unbettable, really. You know, I usually don't like going anything under $1.10 or $1.12 if I'm doing like a parlay. So you have to get sexy. You have to see if he's going to stop his opponent. I think those odds are crazy. I don't think Almeida should be an 8-1 dog. I'll show you why. I mean, guys, what like I get it, and I'm a fan of Chop Chop. We like his camp. We like his potential. He's young, body puncher. Robert Garcia trained. He's in there with a real veteran. This is a guy, 32 years old, southpaw, 34 pro fights, never been stopped. And then if you look a bit deeper, who he's lost to, you guys should know this guy. He's only lost to like really, really good competition. He lost a decision to Jan Santana, who's fighting on this card, who a lot of people rate Jan Santana. People have a lot of aspirations for Santana to be like sort of a guy who could do good things in the sport. And then his only other 2 losses are to Luis Neri, world champion, Angela Leo, world champion. So like this is guys, I think I think he's live, which sounds crazy. I have Chop Chop on my parlay, but to put Aaron Lopez Alameda as an 8-1 dog is super disrespectful, man. Chop Chop only has, I guess he's 17-0 now. It's crazy how time flies. I remember when Chop Chop was 8-0. You know what I mean? So I guess he is 17-0 now, and he's coming into his own. It's a 10-rounder. It's just hard for me to believe that Alameda is an 8-1 dog. So with that being said, looking at these odds, does the fight go the distance? Man, this is this might be my prop of the week. I would play this prop. I'm not playing it yet. I think this fight goes the distance. Plus money, plus 105. Guys, if you're looking for a prop to play, Chop Chop versus Alameda fight to go the distance. Alameda, dude, when we're doing the maths on pattern recognition, we're talking about a 30 plus fight pro Mexican veteran who's fought at the highest level, and his only losses are to 2 guys who were either former world champions who became world champions, and Angelo Leo and Luis Neri, and an undefeated guy in Jan Santana, who a lot of people rate. So you're telling me this kid, and he's going up against a kid, a prospect still. We'll see how Chop Chop handles him. I think it's going to be nip and tuck. I think it's going to be a close fight. Dave Allen likes Noakes when he talks domestic. Well, Dave Allen likes Noakes because he's a Brit, and Noakes is a Brit, and Malloy is Irish. So the one thing that I've learned from my 13 years living here in Sydney, Australia, through having friends who are Irish from Ireland and having former roommates who are from, Britain, there's a rivalry there. I don't know about Dave Allen's takes. I don't watch his channel. Shout out to the White Rhino. He's very entertaining though. So if you respect his take Noakes. It's people are listening. I guess maybe Dave Allen giving his takes on this fight is why those odds have increased, because there is money coming in on Sean Noakes, and I didn't understand why. And I was under the impression it's because maybe people thought that was the kid who fought Abdullah. But it does make sense if Dave Allen, who definitely has a much more bigger platform than we have here, is telling people, and that's probably why that money's coming in. But my boots are dug on Malloy. I think Malloy's just the better boxer, more seasoned, better amateur, bigger guy, younger, A-side, all that good stuff. Promotional A-side. Johnny, I know we've talked about it all week, but could you sell me on Diego knockout? I'm trusting Buddy McGirt, but rewatching his last two fights don't impress. Yeah, so here's why I like Diego Pacheco by knockout. It's because, and you're right, his last two fights, went the distance with two guys who, people are going to slam him going to the distance with two veterans. Sergio was undefeated. Sergio's a goddamn tank. Sergio has a very determined style. And then, give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. I'll pull it up for you. Okay. So Pacheco's 25-0 with 18 knockouts, right? He's only 25 years old. He's 6'4". Emmanuel Aleem's 5'9". Emmanuel Aleem has a 70-inch reach advantage. Pacheco has a 79-inch reach advantage. Why does that matter? That matters because Pacheco is going to have a 6+ inch height advantage, a 9-inch reach advantage. Pacheco could fight you from the outside. Pacheco also, in my opinion, does great work on the inside. Emmanuel Aleem is a guy who prides himself on his front foot, weaponizing his cardio and pace and fighting you on the inside. He ducks his head. He likes to put his head on your chest. Diego Pacheco's last two performances, to answer your question, Sergio McCumbee and Nelson. But what you got to understand though is this is a kid. I put this up on my Instagram and in the Discord. You'd be hard pressed to find another 168 pounder with a better resume in pro boxing than Diego Pacheco. You also have to understand the 168-pound division is a grown man division. It's one of these divisions where you don't see a lot of guys at 21, 22 years old excelling at the world level at 168. They're not fully matured yet. You usually see that in the lighter divisions based on physical stature, that sort of thing. A kid who's 6'4", 79-inch reach, high knockout to win ratio. He's fighting an undefeated Steven Nelson, who is in his 30s. He's fighting a one-loss Trevor McCumbee, who's in his 30s, who was coming off the loss to Plant, who had success against Plant. He was coming off, and he was fighting an undefeated Kevin Saggio. So, those are 3 wins that he had to figure out how to get wins for, right? Were some of them awe-inspiring rounds? Yes. Now, when you look a little bit deeper, this is a guy who is an LA-based kid. He talks very openly about his love for, Southern California. He chose to go outside of his comfort zone and train with Jose Benavidez Sr. for years in the Pacific Northwest. And while we were watching him, it looked to me, because if you go a little bit deeper from his other performances, this guy knocking out guys like Manny Gallegos, Jack Cullen. We were doing tape when Jack Cullen was fighting, I forgot who somebody who had a common opponent with Jack Cullen, and some of you boys were picking against me. And I was like, no, Jack Cullen is good. Jack Cullen at one time is a beast. Diego knocks him out. He knocks Manny Gallegos out. He, stops Caceres, gets a win over McCollman. This is a really, really impressive resume. I know people want to do revisionist history because a 25-year-old kid all of a sudden stopped knocking guys out. To me, those knockouts, there's a reason why they stopped coming. A few different reasons. A, leveling up, fighting better competition. And B, he looked disinterested, in my opinion. I feel like his skill set, this kid physically has so many gifts, the obvious ones that we could see, but also there's good hand speed. There's good footwork for how big he is. He likes fighting in the pocket. I love his uppercuts. He has a good jab when he throws his jab. If this kid just got on his jab and stayed on the outside, he would be walking a lot. Like, he would have been able to walk Sajuan to a lot more shots. So what does that tell me? Lack of discipline, disinterested, losing focus, and then you got to unpeel the onion. Why is this happening to a 25-year-old potential champ, potential titleist? I got to say, what's happening in the sparring, what's happening in the camp, what's happening with his coaching. And then you find out that, he had like 1 or 2 fights left on his contract with Benavidez Sr. He really didn't want to be there. And so Benavidez Sr. lets him out of that contract. Shout out to Team Benavidez Sr. Great camp. And he signs with Buddy McGirt. Go back to the 90s, look at Buddy McGirt as a boxer, and then when Buddy McGirt transitioned to being a coach, this is a guy who handled Arturo Gatti through one of his best runs. This is a guy who's known for being able to take potential and talent from a fighter and let it shine in the ring. When I found out that that's who Pacheco was going with, I loved it. Like, for me personally, and I know the knockout is not the popular pick here because Pacheco hasn't been stopping guys, but there was a time where he was. Great body puncher, use the jab, big, and I think you wrap all that up with how determined Emmanuel Aleem is going to be. I don't think Lester Martinez is as big as a puncher as people say that he is. So the knock on that is, well, if Lester couldn't knock him out, Diego's not going to knock him out. Well, I'm not convinced Lester's a big puncher. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not really sold on Lester being the guy that they told us he was, as this marauding one-punch guy. I think it's evident that he's actually not that guy, and a lot of his knockouts came on the regional level against domestic guys coming up through the Argentina sort of circuit. So I've seen Pacheco knock guys out. I've seen him younger, use the jab. I've seen him work the body and get stoppages, punch placement on point. And I think with that style that Aleem is going to, I expect Aleem to do what he always does, come forward, rush in. Diego stay on the outside, pop, pepper him with the jab, frustrate him, boom, uppercut. I could see a world where this is going to be a remotivated Diego. When you look at his last 2 fights fighting in LA, he's won both of them by knockout. That's important. He's in front of his hometown, his people. He has a new coach, Buddy McGirt, who's a legend in the game. And there's a little bit of animosity on this when you watch the fight week promos, when you watch them staring down and that sort of thing. And I'm comfortable with the knockout. It's a risk either way. When I show you it's betting, you know what I'm saying? I know you just asked for my read, but that's my thinking. And now, you don't have to agree with me, but at least you'll know my point of view. And I do have action on the Pacheco by knockout is my prop knockout of the week. And when I got it, it was at I think it was at plus 175. I don't know what it's at now. Let's check. I like I understand if you don't like it based off of what have you done for me lately, so I get it. Yeah, it still hasn't moved. This is intriguing. Isn't this intriguing? It's intriguing. Still hasn't moved. Either way. Obviously, the money line you can't play. Pacheco money line is unplayable. I think Pacheco's a future world champion. I think at 25 years old, this kid won't fully mature for another few years. I don't think we've even seen a speck of his potential. I think what I'm predicting is kind of like how I've been winning money on Seb Fundora. Same sort of thing. All the physical attributes, but young. Pacheco hasn't been knocked out before, but he's been dropped before in his last fight. When you look at a Fundora type who's gifted physically, such as Pacheco, who's young, you have to think that this kid is going to continuously grow. You can the error that you guys can make is bettors. This is the biggest, most common gambling error that I see from my life experience betting on pro sports is using and sort of keeping fighters in the past, especially when they're young. There's one thing with a guy who's past their prime and they start showing consecutive or repetitive out sort of outcomes that they're kind of like on the downside. There's another thing when you see a young fighter who has a down performance and you all of a sudden think that's who that young fighter is, and you forget the fact of the maturation process, the leveling up process, the lessons learned process. And this is what we've seen and we're seeing in Seb Fundora. It's amazing to watch Fundora fight. He's one of my favorite fighters because you're watching him learn how to use his length. You're watching him trust his size. You're watching him not give away his reach and his physical advantages. And you're watching him learn how to keep people at his range where he wants to be. And he's mean. One of my favorite fighters to watch. And I'm expecting that from Pacheco. I'm expecting that from Diego, especially with the handlers with Buddy. So all will be known in due time. And we'll know after this fight. It is his first fight with Buddy. I don't expect there should be a big feeling out process of coach-client, coach-student, coach-athlete trust. It seems like that's already there. It seems like this is a guy that he wanted to go to for a few fights before he was able to. And now he was able to do that, make that move. And I'm excited to see this fight. I'm going to catch up to the chat. Morning, boys. Damn, I'm late. Kyron Jones, Harlem versus Papo. DC Roach winning against Cepeda. I love that, people, Johnny and Julius. Do you like Josh Kelly? You got Floyd's asking. Shout out to my boy Floyd. Floyd is just Floyd is. If you read Floyd's chat, it's every fight except the fights happening this weekend. I'll get to those, big dog. I'll get to those. Eubank Papo distance, yeah. Noakes Malloy distance, yep. Chop, bro. Andy Cruz did 969. I think Cruz gets the knockout though. I'm sorry. I know Montoya's never been stopped. Andy Cruz coming off a loss. I have my read on that is Cruz by knockout. Based off of him losing a close decision to Morataya, based off of him wanting to prove something, based off of Montoya, in my opinion, takes the fight on short notice, gets hit a whole ton. Andy Cruz is super sharp. Bozy definitely has Andy Cruz punching differently, sitting on shots. A couple fights prior, he was stopping guys. I expect Andy Cruz to come out and look phenomenal. So I'm actually playing the Cruz by knockout. Pacheco, Aleem over. Great explanation on the resume at age 25. Yeah, I think things like this matter. Like looking at a fighter's resume at a certain age, it doesn't always matter. Like when we're looking at a guy like who's 35. If a guy who's 35, it's not always the best thing to look at a guy who's 35, his resume in the the totality of it, because time has passed. Fighters change. Fighters get old. But when you're 25, I think it's a great marker to depict a fighter's potential and a fighter's growth. There's a kid that's fighting that the Bruno fight. Bruno Rios is fighting. Now, Bruno Rios is a kid who all week they've been telling me he's going to win by upset. He started off as like a 4-1 underdog, and I think it's almost like a 50-50 fight. And I was breaking down Bruno Rios's resume. And all I was saying was, if this is a kid that his handlers felt like he has the potential of being like going from prospect to contender now, why is he fighting guys 3-30? Why is he fighting guys 1-19? Why is he fighting guys 4-40? That sort of matchmaking for a really talented, hyped prospect, that does nothing for the prospect. So I could look at that resume. It tells me a lot, actually, believe it or not. And so sometimes, I guess my point is, sometimes resumes will tell you a lot. Sometimes you can't always believe them. I think the age of the fighter really matters, where the fighter is in their career. I think Diego Pacheco's resume speaks for itself. I mean, look at the names on that kid's resume. He's 25 years old, man. People are hard on that. People are always going to be hard on young, talented fighters who get shine, and I get it. I understand. So I'm not trying to gatekeep that. Be hard on whoever you want to be hard on. But remember, we're betting on these fighters. So when you're betting on outcomes and you're attempting to predict and place your money to win, I highly suggest it's tough to sometimes remove emotion from it. How can we be our most elite cognitively, making the best decisions if we're getting emotional about something? So that's something that I think is a daily work on for me, is every time I do these lives, don't bring emotion into the ball game. Aleem is a 32-year-old journeyman. And look, man, he's gonna bring his pail. He's gonna bring his hard hat. We know about Aleem. After watching the Lester Aleem fight, I came to a conclusion. I was like, I think Lester isn't the guy that they're selling us. We'll see. He doesn't even he doesn't punch. We loved his knockout to win ratio, but then you watch, I did like the adjustment he made in terms of range against Billy. It took him till the 5th round to figure out that range, and then he was having great success. But then the fight against Aleem was kind of like everything looked kind of basic. Like his punch placement, his variation, his speed, how he operates, what he's all about, what he wants to do. It all kind of looks the same with Lester. It's not like he's this guy that he's super dangerous in the first 3 rounds because he has that one punch now. That's who they told us he was. And then I think Aleem proved to me that he's not that guy. Not to say that he's not good, but power changes the dynamics of a fight. And so I think I think Diego has the chance to make a massive statement by stopping Aleem. And then what are they going to say? You know what I'm saying? And then what are they going to say? They'll keep moving the goalpost back. Diego stops Aleem, they'll just say Aleem was a journeyman. Anthony Cuba is in a tough fight. Anthony Cuba's my boy. We've been covering him on the channel for a couple years. I remember when Cuba was in his 6th pro fight. You know what I'm saying? We all remember the Carmel Moten fight. This is tough matchmaking for Cuba, man. And they have not given him any sort of easy fights. Cuba is all, and you know what? If you know anything about him, if you follow his Instagram, give him a follow. He'll follow you back. Message him. He'll message you back. If you know anything about how he's wired, he dodges no smoke. And sometimes he's young. What is he, 23, 24? At this stage of his career, sometimes that could be detrimental because we talk about it all the time. One of the most important facts, one of the most important factors of a young fighter's progress is how they're moved in terms of where they are in their maturation by the matchmakers. So sometimes a fighter, just because they dodge no smoke, will need a camp to say, hey, mate, you're not quite ready for this guy yet. I'm not saying this is the case, but Cuba's a guy who, all the skills, hand speed, ridiculous, skilled fighter, eager to punch with you, fan-friendly, TV style, but he's still kind of developing in front of us. And they're matching him with Michel Cabrera. These are the odds. I don't have action on this. Like, I hope Cuba wins, but this is not a gimme fight, man. I'll show you why. So, dude, another one of these tough Mexican fighters, 20 pro fights. He's only 26, but look, he's 5'10". 5'10" kid, never been stopped. This is the kid. We saw him fight in the WBC Grand Prix. This is the kid who made it, I think, to the semis in the Grand Prix and lost a decision, or was it the finals? In a close fight. The scorecards were his loss in the Grand Prix in Riyadh was like 56-57, 56-57, 55-58. But it was a very competitive fight. So he loses in the Grand Prix. He has a draw. And then, these fights are all I'm pretty sure in Mexico. So he's coming to win. This another great matchmaking. Great matchmaking. This is good. This might be my sleeper fight of the weekend. Anthony Cuba versus Michel Cabrera. Watch his fights in the WC Grand Prix if you're unfamiliar with him. Of all the fights this weekend, this is in my top 2 or 3 that I'm looking forward to. Michel Cabrera versus Anthony Cuba. This is going to be a firefight. And Cuba is a slight favorite on the books. And the kid's a dog. Cuba is it like if you rewind, I can't say I really knew who he was until he fought Carmel Moten. Yeah, Cuba's only 23, man. He has a very pro style too. He doesn't fight like a 23-year-old. He fights like a seasoned veteran. He does kind of early on in fights, he does have a tendency to get touched a bit early on. One of these guys who doesn't really warm up into his fights. He kind of gets right into the mix. And so he could get, you've seen him take shots early and he always kind of overcomes it. He'll win the back end of rounds, super sharp, hand speed through the roof. This is a great matchup. I don't have a read on, I just saw these odds now. I mean, like I said, my heart is with Cuba, but I think this is one of these awesome 50-50 fights to where fight fans could watch this fight and not like you can watch it and not have to bet on it. I think it's going to be fireworks. When young Mexican favorites fight 30-year-old black dogs, it usually doesn't go the distance. Great stat. You guys know Julius has a book about this. Julius won't share that book with us, but he's come on the live streams multiple times. And as I got my book of notes, and we're old school types, Julius has a book of statistical patterns and equations. You need to, bro. That's how we start your YouTube channel. You don't give all your YouTube your secrets away, but we market your YouTube channel around those patterns, like around those secrets over like the decade or so of you watching boxing. Because he's not clown. This isn't a troll statement. All the JSB insiders in our Discord know who Julius is. I guarantee he has a stat about this. When young Mexican favorites fight 30-year-old black dogs, it usually doesn't go the distance. And then Julius will list like over the last 12 months, 5 different times this has happened. This is why our Discord is hands down the best Discord, because we got savages like him in there. Any thoughts on Cody Smith? Yeah, so Cody, I was looking at these fights before I went live. This is on the Misfits card. They opened up. My book now has the first 7 fights on this card. And I'm not going to sit here, Cody, and tell you I taped these guys because I haven't. So I don't have action on these guys either. So I went to bed last night, and I didn't have Finley James versus Jay Canty. This is on that UK Misfits card, guys. Bet at your own risk. These are British prospects with 6 wins, 7 total fights. They're 50-50 fights for a reason. James versus Henty, Bartel versus Kieran, Prosper versus Saki. So, like, I don't have a read on any of these fights. And, if you want to do a parlay for fun, we could tail your picks. But I don't have action on anything up until the Malloy fight. Like I said, I don't even have action on Cuba. But I tell you what, Cuba will fight for your goddamn money. We know that's a fact. He did have trouble making weight. We were supposed to see him, I think, 2 months ago. And then I think the California Commission pulled him during the weight cut. And he was destroyed, because he goes through fight camp. And it was one of these things that something happened with the cut. He will fight for your money. Anthony Cuba, 71% return. He's going up against a real guy. Cuba at 23 has been paired tough, dude. Like, he's one of these guys who's so talented. I love the fact that ProBox has been giving him shine, but at 23, he's being put in this position to have to figure it out in front of everyone, like sink or swim, which, damn well if you ask him, he wouldn't want it any other way. And this is why I'm talking about when I look at guys like Bruno Rios, who's fighting guys who are 1-13. and 3-23. There's a reason for this. It's not that people. I don't think it's people are dodging people. I just think that I don't know. I don't have these answers. Maybe Bruno Rios is that guy, and maybe I'm undervaluing him. This is insane. So this is the Sal Sanchez Bruno Rios fight. Sal Sanchez, and look at the fluctuation of the odds on the right of the screen right here. So as you could tell, Sal Sanchez opened up at $1.15. All this money has been skyrocketing coming in on Bruno Rios. I don't see it. I don't. I have Sanchez on the money line. I think people are leaning on Bruno Rios, his amateur. He's a Compton-based fighter. He has, some celebrities backing him. People, he's been knocking out guys who are like 2-15, 2-30. So the knockout is live. That's why if you look to the right, he's a dog. But for him to win by knockout, you're not getting that great of odds, plus 250. So that's the storyline. They think that Rios, if he wins, he's going to stop Sanchez. So I think that's where the money is coming in on. We'll see. It's an interesting fight. There's a lot of interesting fights. I think Aguiar could win by knockout. These are great fight. These are great questions, man. Anton, I got Aguiar and Anton both on the money line. But are props out? I didn't have props yesterday. Like it bothers. So with Trayshawn's 36 now. Not the most active. This is important, guys. This is important. It's the same thing we're dealing with Errol. Like 36 years old in boxing. The only time 36 in boxing isn't old is if you haven't been getting beat up or haven't been getting stopped, and B, you've been active. At 36, to be inactive for even more than a year, it's not a good sign. And so Trayshawn isn't the Trayshawn from when he was 26. He's going up against Ruben Aguiar could punch. Big, aggressive, keeps his chin high, keeps his chin a bit high. He's figuring things out. I didn't see props. Do we have props? Oh yeah. I guess we're gonna. All right, guys. I'm gonna do a prop parlay. Do we do it now or do I wait? Do we do it live or what do we do? I'll do in about 10 minutes, I'll go through the ProBox card and just kind of do a pick a name, rapid fire, and if I like it, I'll make it official. But Power Kennel, shout out for making me look this up because I didn't have these props yesterday. I'm just seeing this for the first time. So, what have you done for me lately? It tells me Aguiar should stop him. Damn. There's some fun fights. Bro, I think Sean Oaks gets it done. I'll show you why I don't think he gets it done. Here's why. Here's why I don't think Sean Oaks gets it done. Okay. We'll start with the seasoning component of the story I'm going to sell you. I never trust a domestic level 31-year-old British prospect. That's probably part one. 31-year-old British prospect with 65 pro rounds. Experience. What are we waiting for? Okay, Johnny, he's had 300 amateur fights. He was a storied amateur and went to 3 different Olympics. Did he? Let's check out his oh no, he didn't. So he doesn't have an amateur career either. No amateur background. Yeah, he doesn't. Okay, so all right, let's continue. And sometimes BoxRec doesn't list all of their amateur pedigree on it, so it's not end all and be all. But we know for a fact Noakes didn't have a extensive amateur background. That we know that. Okay. Who did Sean fight to get this fight? Who did he beat to get this fight? Oh, so he beats Ezekiel Gregoris, who is 3-30. All right, in a 6-rounder. This is a 10-rounder, by the way. Why does 10 rounds matter? 10 rounds, going from a 6-rounder to a 10-rounder matters. Can you keep shape? Coaches will say, as you're getting ready to go from like 4 rounds to 6 rounds, 6 rounds to 8 rounds, one of the first sort of like metrics that a coach is looking for with a young guy is how does he keep his shape in those 2 added rounds in a pro fight? What did he look like going from 4 to 6? What did he look like going from, what did round 7 and 8 look like? All right, so he's going from 6 to 10, right? And he's 31. Can he keep shape? He's 31. Keep that in mind. We're going to continue. So, he had a 10-rounder before. It's not like it's his first 10-rounder. So he beats Gregorius, who was 3-30. He beats Liskowski, who was 6-38. 2 wins to propel him into Kieran Malloy. Guys who were 6-30 and 3-30. All right. And then you're like, all right, so what's his best win? The boys in my Discord were like, well, he beat, he stopped a guy who was 11-1, but his best win was Matthew Rennie, who was 14-0 in a 10-rounder. So his best win is Matthew Rennie. Let's check out Matthew Rennie, who was undefeated when they fought. So this is the kid. This is so quote unquote his best win. He was 14-0 when they fought. Look who Matthew Rennie was fighting. Maybe he was fighting undefeated guys. Maybe he's like a domestic marauder. We'll see. So before he fought Sean, look who Rennie was fighting. Look how Rennie built his record. He fights Sean when he was 14-0. Sean was 8-0. Before Sean, he fights a guy who was 13-64, 5-34, 5-8, a guy who was 19-3, who I guarantee when we click on Moorcroft, you'll see the same sort of thing. This is called British domestic manufacturing. This is what we saw with Sam. Maybe you know what this fight reminds me of? This fight reminds me of a month ago when I was debating. I know 3D. A lot of the 3D's whole squad was on it. When Sam Gilly fought Aston Brown, it was domestic British level fight with a Brit and an Irish boy or a Scot. And we took Sam Gilly, and Aston was like 9-0 with 8 knockouts, and he has all this real power. And Gilly was a guy who, more pro experience, fought at a different level, and we got him at plus 600 by knockout. And we hit the plus 600 by knockout, Sam Gilly. So that's what this matchup reminds me of. I think that let's do both sides of the token. We can't just stop at Sean. Let's go look at who he's fighting. So Kieran Malloy. Malloy 14-0, 7 knockouts. Carries a bit of power. This is his 5'11" welterweight. He's 27 years old. He's a southpaw. He's aggressive. 50% knockout to win ratio. I know for a fact he's had more pro amateur fights than this. I've heard of Kieran Malloy before from the amateur scene. So what's that tell you? This kid, amateur experience isn't always end all and be all, but when you're going from the amateurs to the pros, seasoning matters, especially when things get a little bit hairy in there. Experience matters, rounds matter. So you got a 27-year-old with an amateur background fighting a guy who's the A side and the favorite in his opponent's hometown, mind you, because this is Noakes' hometown, going up against a guy in Noakes who has no amateur background, who's 31 years old, who's coming off 2 wins against guys who were 3-30 and 3-38. Okay, so this is what Malloy has looked like as a pro. And this is all without showing you any tape. If you want me to show tape, I'll get flagged. But I'll leave it up to you to go find the tape and then add in what you see in the tape to what we're talking about. And I'm not trying to sell you. You're just asking me. So this is what I see. Okay, so and you're looking at the matchmaking. Over the last year, the kid only turned pro a few years back. Easy, and then it starts getting a little bit more tough. His resume isn't going to blow you away either. This is for the IBF European title. His resume kind of looks like what I would expect a resume to look like in terms of a kid who they feel they're moving in a certain direction, who maybe could fight for that Lonsdale belt one day. This is for the European welterweight title, so this is past British level. So I take that back. I'm pretty sure, isn't the Lonsdale belt the British title and then the Europeans after that? So I just think that we're going to see a level here. I think he's a better boxer. I think he's a level above. And it makes sense money's coming in on Noakes now because you guys said that the White Rhino was shouting him out. So that's how I see it. Cruz Pacheco by knockout. I think so. I want to see how Montoya looks. Short notice fight for Montoya. I think Cruz is going to use his speed. I want to see more body work. I want to see him using less ring. I want to see Andy Cruz use less ring and be more efficient on the inside. And I think he's going to be aggressive. He's going to be hungry. He's coming off his first career pro loss. He's going to want to fucking silence the doubters and silence the naysayers. I think Abraham Montoya is tailor-made for Andy Cruz to stop him. How are you able to find the Ginny Fuchs first fight? Help me. It was 2 years ago, mate. They put him. Check the Discord. Paid by Punches. Cody Smith. If you on pro. All right. Shout out. So Paid by Punches is giving us a prelim parlay on the Misfits card. And asking thou shalt receive. Guys, we're 50 minutes in. We have 75 in here. Can we like the video? Subscribe to the channel. Become a JSP insider. Get all my picks, all my plays. More importantly, enter our world-famous professional betting Discord for only a couple bucks a month. That link is pinned. You can either join on YouTube or Patreon. We also stream the fights in the Discord, which will save you thousands of dollars of paying for fights. Live betting, too. Live betting is something that doesn't get spoken about enough. There is so much money on the table during live betting. This is something that our community has taught me, and the Discord chat has taught me, meaning that when the fights are going on, we're in the Discord, we're live chatting, we're watching the fights together, and the boys are saying, hey, updated odds, and thousands of dollars are made during live betting. Last time Michelle Cabrera fought in ProBox, he lost and got knocked down in 2023. Last time Michelle Cabrera fought, though, he made it to the semis in the WBC Grand Prix in Riyadh and looked really good. What's up with the UFC? Fatima Klein on points, looking good. Parlay piece. I'm gonna go live tomorrow too, guys. We don't have so tomorrow is my Saturday. It's I have sparring at 9 a.m. and then what I'm gonna do is I'll live stream either before or after. I will live stream tomorrow because we don't have fights. There's no boxing. There's no UFC. And I haven't been able to cover the UFC yet because there's so much boxing we're getting into. So tomorrow I'm going live. I'll do more UFC there. I have checked the tickets. You VIPs, you'll have my UFC Dog of the Week, which the odds are actually going crazy right now, which is great. And then I did a boxing and UFC mix. It's a 4-legger plus 113 on the money line. I posted that today. I love it. It doubles our money. If you just take Marcos, Anton, and Flores on the money line, and then CLD, he fights in the UFC on the money line, you get plus 118. So one of my big boys who, he's in the shadows. His bankroll's freaking insane. I sent him this. And I just sent him this. And I sent you this. And if you're watching now, almost an hour in, this is a play I have. So I'm going heavy on this. Plus 118, 4 fights on the money line. Doubles your money. Jan Marcos, Anton, Flores, and then CLD on the money line. Thoughts on Ruiz Fuke 2. It's a rematch. My dog of the week is Auntie Ruiz. I got Adelaide Ruiz to win the rematch. Since they last fought in 2024, she's had 2 fights. Fuke hasn't fought. Ruiz has become a world champion. Fuke hasn't fought. Fuke had a couple rounds in the Combat Sports League, but she lost 2 rounds, which, do you want to count those? And I thought that Ruiz won the first fight. Auntie Ruiz is 38. Fuchs is 39. She's the A side. I got her a plus 115. Auntie Ruiz is my dog of the week. Anthony Cuba wins. I hope he wins, man. He's a fun 23-year-old fighter. What's up, player? Youngin, for the Cuba fight, I like to draw if the fight is really close. Drawing! A moonshot in the house. $17. Have you ever sprinkled and hit on a draw, Youngin? I don't have it in my DNA to play the draw. I think it's a psychological barrier on my end where I can't do it. Like, I can't even do $1 on a draw. It's just not in my sort of makeup to ever bet on a draw. I don't know why. It's something that's been holding me back. Got a few UFC questions. Is Usman live? DDP didn't change any coaching since the Chimaev fight. Size difference doesn't mean to be huge. Usman, no. I think Usman gets destroyed, man. Age is a real thing. Was he 39 now? DDP is a nightmare to deal with, dude. Super aggressive, active style. You gotta understand, Chimaev didn't hold DDP down because of his wrestling. Chimaev held him down due to that Dagestani grip. That what does he call it? He's from Chechnya. The Chechnya grip he has on the ground. That's not wrestling. It's a different style. Usman comes from a Roman Greco style. And Usman doesn't have submissions. DDP's massive, dude. I think DDP makes it look easy. Is Alberto Montez live against Tommy again? That's the fight where like the Discord's going crazy over this fight. I don't think I've been watching UFC too long to know when I see sort of gimmicks. I mean, Tommy McMillan, I'm not buying into that kid. I'm not saying he's going to lose, but there's so many holes in his technique. There's too much. There's a thing in combat sports of having too much moxie. He kind of has this pseudo moxie, this pseudo charisma into, selling the character of who he wants to be. I think the way he fights, he's going to have a very short career. So I'm not sold on it. Even watching my boy Lonnie Kavanaugh lose again, we saw him lose to Charles Johnson and he just lost to Royval. Mind you, Royval put on the freaking performance of his career. What we're seeing is Lonnie struggles with tall, long guys for the division. Lonnie, like you look at a guy like Kavanaugh, a prospect contender who's super well-rounded, technical. You see why, he's so young and he gets these big fights versus a guy like McMillan, how he operates, working the crowd, exciting, tattoos everywhere. We've seen this gimmick before. I'm like, I don't know. It's not a fight. If Montez isn't the guy, somebody's going to come around. Like, he's not. McMillan has too many holes in his game for the style he fights at. You know what I'm saying? You can't big dick your way to a world title in the UFC. That's what I'm saying. You might be able to big dick your way to like 1 million Instagram followers if that's what you want to do. But this is the fight game. We have to think about consequences. We have to think about longevity. We have to think about legacy in terms of young fighters coming on the scene. We've seen this before. Flash in the pan sort of guys who come out of nowhere, look good during the contender, look good in their opener. But then you're like, this style doesn't last. This is kind of gimmicky. Tommy McMillan's too gimmicky for me. McGregor's a legend, bro. That's not what I'm talking about. Conor McGregor changed the entire game, dude. And especially from a marketing standpoint, a fighter pay standpoint, a production standpoint. Dude, there's 2 dates in the UFC, before Conor and after Conor. And I'm not even a Conor fan. I'm just an MMA fan. I've watched the whole sport since its very first event in 1993. This whole revisionist history is horrible. And I bet for Conor to get knocked out. You guys know that. I took Max to knock him out. We won. So it's not like I'm a Conor fanboy. But I was there in person when the game changed. I watched everything happen. I followed Conor in the regional scene when he fought in Cage Warriors. I remember when Joe Duffy subbed him in Cage Warriors. And so at the time, people thought that was going to derail his run. I remember when he got the blackout treatment in Boston on the undercard. We had never seen this in the UFC. A fighter who is on the undercard getting called out to do the walkouts, getting the blackout treatment. And Conor changed everything. So obviously, it's a young man's sport. Judge him if you want to judge him how he acts outside of the octagon. What you can never say, though, is that he didn't change the game. So he forever changed the game, forever goated for that aspect of it. For Duncan versus Cannonier, I think it at least goes the distance. Jared doesn't. It just bothers me that Jared's 40, and it bothers me with how athletic Leroy Duncan is. This is a kid who, I guess, could have played professional basketball. You see it in his movement patterns. This is another thing what we're starting to see with, think about our boy Cyril Gahn. Cyril Gahn was a professional basketball player. Go to YouTube and type in Cyril Gahn basketball. This is a guy, Cyril Gahn is a 6'4" guy, muscle bodied up, who's yamming on people, taking fools off the dribble with the hezzy, boom, and then shitting on people. Leroy Duncan is that same sort of athlete, just a little bit smaller. And, you know, this stage of the Killer Gorilla's career, flat-footed, pretty predictable with his style. I'm high on Christian Leroy Duncan. His explosivity, his power, what he could do at different ranges, and the limitness, you know, how limited the Killer Gorilla is these days. Even though, shout out to the Killer Gorilla, because this weekend when, who did we see? I think it was Max Holloway. It counted as a TKO, didn't it? So before this weekend, there were only 2 fighters in UFC history to have knockouts in 3 different divisions. One of them was Conor McGregor. The other one was Jared Cannonier. And I'm pretty sure with Max stopping Conor at 170, he's the third now because he had stoppages at 45 and 55. I got Tommy McMillan by out Doggy Montez, the messier fight. The better Tommy is a dog. Alberto got finished by a 37-year-old. Yeah, I don't have action on that fight. But the Discord's all over that. Our Discord is acting like Tommy McMillan is Conor McGregor. Damn, that jump from 6 to 10 is huge. Which dogs are you hunting for Christos? Oh, he's asking Christos. Boots versus Josh Kelly. I hope it happens. Kelly has to get past Garko. Coming on Garko, that fight is on the undercard of Anthony Joshua coming up next week. There's a couple world title fights on that card. People are tripping on that card's good. There's like 3 world title fights on that card. Kamanar Garko is a super athlete. You guys know how I feel about Kelly. I've been wanting to see Kelly versus Boots for like 5 years. So you can find videos of me 5 years ago talking about that's the matchup I want to see in boxing, based just stylistically. And so it might happen. It's crazy. Reasons I think Montoya goes the distance. Montoya is game fighter who comes to fight. He'll fight for your distance bet. He's more experienced. The thing about Montoya, though, is he's coming on short notice. He doesn't have a fight camp. Will he be in shape? And you got to think about all that against a really sharp Andy Cruz, who was in camp to fight Albert Bell. You got this is one of those things where when you're looking at potential career trajectory, where is said fighter trending? Where does said fighter want to go? Does Montoya have championship aspirations for taking this fight with no camp on short notice? Does Andy Cruz have championship aspirations? Well, yeah, we know he does. How about Montoya? I don't know about that. Erdenbot, Jojo, Castro, Cortez, Venado, Lopez. It's only a 10-rounder, so that benefits the distance play. Cruz has shown that when he faces a brawler, he'll often just lay back. No, you're right. You're right. He'll revert back. He'll win rounds. It's last-minute replacement from as well. Montoya fought recently, so he's fresh. Fulton and Charlo having visa issues. I heard that. Does Malloy get the knockout? I'm just playing the money line. Popo versus Eubank. I like Popo on the money line. My potential UFC dogs. JPL is my dog. Rich, how far people have just written off our boy Chase Hooper, haven't they? Tabitha Ritchie. Richie's in a tough fight. She's always just with how her size. You know what I mean? How undersized she is. But Mitch Ramirez, you know, it's a popular dog pick this week, considering Chase Hooper and the ups and downs we've seen. This is another kid we've kind of watched grow in front of us. I remember watching him Alaska Regional MMA. This would have been like during the pandemic. UFC Fight Pass would play the Alaskan MMA regionals. That's how big of a nerd I am, guy. I watch regional MMA. I watch regional Cage Fury out of the Northeast in the US. I'll watch LFA. I'll watch Aries. I'll watch the Mexican stuff. I would watch the Alaskan MMA stuff. So it allows me to always keep a sort of a foot on the pulse of MMA as well. I watch just as much MMA as I do boxing. JPL is my dog of the week, though. I blasted him on Monday. I should have waited because a lot of money is coming in for his opponent. Subchannel just tuning out. Have you discussed UFC? I'm gonna do UFC tomorrow. I'm gonna do so much more intention for the UFC card. I'll bring the odds up. We're just kind of winding down now. I do have a client downstairs in about 20 minutes. We are an hour and 5 minutes in. There's 72 in here, excuse me. Could you like this video? Comment when I post this as well. Subscribe to the channel. Join the Discord. And let's get this money this week, boys. You know, if you played the Japanese underdog, you're already up. We hit a 2-1 on Tuesday with Kajino. The live chat did that. We all did it together. And, you know, just like every week, by now we've put our work in. We've done film study. We got our reads. And, you know, it's up to the outcomes to see, you know, how these chips will fall. We know we put the work in, though. That's why when we lose, it's not the frustrating thing about losing isn't necessarily the outcome. It's the fact that it's like, damn, the effort. But the effort doesn't go unnoticed. If you lose one week, the wins will come. I think effort will always pay itself out one way or another, anything in life. This is something, if you're wherever you, this is the esoteric part of the show. Wherever you are in your life, whether you're building something, you're in a career you don't like, you're in a relationship you don't like, or you like your career, or you want to elevate, just remember it's the effort. Intent-based effort. If it doesn't show up tomorrow in the outcomes, it'll show up when you're least expecting it. Trust me on that. Because that's the one thing we can't control is our effort. Nobody's going to outwork me in any. That's my mindset, though. That's not an ego move. I'm not acting like a big dog in anything. But my mindset has always been an underdog mindset. If I'm not the biggest guy, if I'm not the fastest guy, if I'm not the tallest guy, if I'm not the smartest guy, well, what can I control then? All right, I could control my effort. So, all right, then who could take that from me? Nobody. So that's the mind. Nobody's going to outwork me. And that should be your mindset with whatever we do. I got to run. Let's go, boys.